Hey there, Internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of Movie Monday. This time reviewing a spoiler-filled review of Ready Player One, which I've now seen a few times because I've really been enjoying the movie. If you want my spoiler-free impressions, I'll link that in the description below. But here be spoilers. Kind of running through characters first, and then I'll run through kind of the plot kind of act by act and kind of discuss that. So characters... admittedly, a lot of the criticisms out there are that the characters are a little thinly drawn. I think that is mostly prevalent with how the characters are kind of introduced. You kind of have Parzival, our main character, Wade Watts. A lot of what we get from him is like narration. So there are, especially in the last time I was watching through, I kind of identified like three Wades. You have the narrator, Wade, who's, confident in how he's an egg hunter, a gunter, kind of talking about the quest for Halliday's treasure. You have Parzival, Wade, who's, kind of not cocksure, but he's like, he knows who he is in the world of the Oasis. And then you have, real world Wade, and we really only get him, I feel like, in his very first scene, where he's kind of being attacked and harassed by his aunt and her boyfriend, where he's super timid and super stuttery. We never get that Wade again in the rest of the film, so it's a weird, it feels like that scene was shot first and they didn't really have a feeling for the character yet. But once you get kind of the merging of Parzival Wade and Wade, I think that kind of, he becomes kind of confident, more comfortable in his skin. I definitely feel like Ty Sheridan, I like Ty Sheridan. I feel like even he's more emotive as Parzival, so that's not the best kind of I feel like he's very kind of still and stoic in Wade's performance, whereas the animators, I think, have given a lot of life to Parzival as the Avatar character, and I'm certainly more engaged in kind of seeing him than I am necessarily Wade. As kind of his counterpoint, you have Artemis, aka Samantha, who basically her whole backstory and exposition is fleshed out in one scene, and I laugh at it, but also it's efficient. It tells why she's doing what she's doing. It's very kind of personal. Her father got brought into a loyalty center and died, and so now she is basically trying to take vengeance on IOI, and she sees getting the egg hunt and tracking down the egg as the way of doing that. It's a fairly rote kind of cause, but it's there. In terms of the two of them together, there's absolutely a lot of fun to be made about the fact that they go on a date and he tells her he loves her. But then I remember being young, being older than these characters are and doing that exact same shit, telling a girl on a second date that I think I loved her, was not my finest hour, but it's something I've totally done. So, it definitely feels forced in the moment, but it's also remembering, oh, this is a socially awkward kid who is very much invested in the Oasis life, and so he meets a girl who's interesting and talks to him and, shares the same passion he is. It's going to be very easy and quick to fall in love with that girl. I think her response is is incredibly apt, and no, you love what I'm showing you. You don't love me. You don't know me. But it's funny, and it's some cringy-ish dialogue, but it rings a little more true than I think people are giving it credit for. Elsewhere, you have James Halliday, played by Mark Rylance, who I remember when I first saw the trailers and saw his telling, if you're seeing this, I'm dead, felt like it was just bad acting, out of context. In context with the character, where he's he is the socially awkward programmer to the extreme. I appreciate it a little bit more. I appreciate the juxtaposition between him and his avatar, Anorak, the all-knowing. He is much more confident in that kind of persona and talking to the actors. He also has just a ton of fun little moments. Like the first time we really meet him, when he's talking about the company, he does that. He's got a great little gag about, if you look on, I think we should just play it. If you look under your seats, well, you're not going to find anything there, but we'll bring you the headsets. It's a great little moment that kind of subverts your expectations, and you hear laughter in the scene. And part of me thinks like that was a whole bunch of extras who weren't told what was going to happen that are just genuinely reacting in that moment. I don't know if that's true, but I would love it if it is, because that's what that moment feels like. And we get to see kind of the pain in the breakup between him and Simon Pegg's character, Og, his kind of co-creator. It's a very reminiscent of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, if you're familiar with their kind of story, in that they kind of like were coming up in Apple together, and then Steve Jobs obviously kind of came to the forefront while Wozniak was content to kind of be. It's like a little bit of a reversal where Og would have been the Steve Jobs character in this, and Halliday would have been the Wozniak programmer character, but so it's a nice little juxtaposition there. But we get to see, and I didn't know going into it because I hadn't looked at like even the poster and stuff like that. I didn't know Simon Pegg was in the movie until I was watching it the first time. So that was a pleasant surprise, and he has like some great moments. He's also, of course, as a spoiler in there, the curator, and that like watching it after that, having that knowledge, it adds a whole other layer of like he is so invested in kind of managing the Halliday journals, the archives, because it's his friend that like he'd lost touch with and he'd had this falling out with. So he's there. It's kind of a torturous, broken-hearted kind of aspect that he's out there watching and seeing all these people come and become so invested in their story together, like people like Parzival. And just also in the real world, he has like all three times I've seen it now, when he's kind of there at the end after Wade has won everything, and basically he has lawyers, and Wade's like, I'm gonna run the company with my clan. We're gonna run this together. Just with Simon Pegg's like, that's a good choice, and how like choked up he is in that, like it gets me every time. So kudos to him for even like simple stuff like that line. I really loved his performance in this film. And then you have kind of H and Daito and Sho as kind of like your supplemental characters. You have Ben Mendelsohn as the Nolan Sorrento character, who's big bad villain. I love that he's basically becoming like the Richard Vernon go-to villain in these kinds of movies. Of course, he was in Rogue One, and he's now in this, and so he's becoming kind of like a new generation. Like, you have Richard Vernon as like the 80s villain from movies like Breakfast Club and stuff like that, and I feel like we're going to look back on like who was the big bad villain of the 2010s, and like Ben Mendelsohn is going to be one of those guys we go to. I like that he's more reliant on he's got the ambition, but he doesn't have the knowledge, and so he's got a whole army of people behind him for the knowledge. You also have a great kind of turn from T.J. Miller as IROC, kind of a mercenary-like character in the game. I love that we don't see him in the real world. We only see him through his avatar, and he's playing T.J. Miller, but it works in the context of this character as like a smarmy guy who has devoted 10 years to becoming really good at this game and getting really cool stuff. And he's super invested in the game. He has, of course, he activates the orb and really gets into kind of saying the incantation that activates it in a way that Nolan's just like, I just do it. I don't want to. I've got better things to do than this. So those are the characters that I kind of wanted to highlight. And so kind of moving on to the action of the film, just kind of taking it act by act, basically challenge by challenge. I love that the first challenge in particular kind of sets up this world. Like, we get a little introduction to the world in general. You run through the Minecraft world, you run through like the sports world, the vacation worlds and stuff like that. It does a good job setting up like this is what the Oasis can do, as juxtaposed against the like how shitty the super trailer parky stuff of the stacks where Wade lives are. He's he can't even play in his shitty trailer park. He has to go like find this little van that he has kind of carved out a hole in to play, buried under other cars and stuff like that. It's like, I appreciate the desperation that he has to escape into this oasis to try and, you know, go after the egg and that kind of stuff. Like, you get a sense of why he would do that. You definitely don't get enough of his personal life for it to have stakes when Nolan does kind of blow up his stack later on in the movie, but it's just going for the cheap, like, his family died, so of course you're supposed to have like an emotional response, even though the film doesn't really earn an emotional response. It's just kind of taking a shortcut in the same way that like Disney does it all the time, where like the first 10 minutes you kill a parent, not like you knew or were connected to the parent, but it's a cheap kind of easily emotional pull. As for the first task itself, you have the wonderful action race scene that they've kind of played with and shown off in a lot of the trailers and stuff. And what I love about it is that, you know, we see kind of the chaos of this race, and you kind of learn the rules of it, so to speak, in that, like, nobody ever beats Kong, and so that is the obstacle to try and, you know, get past. And I love the action of that, and it is, like, that's where you start getting a smorgasbord of, like, little Easter egg, you know, the Batmobiles in there and stuff like that. And then I love when Parzival is solving it and kind of figures out, okay, the clue is go backwards. We can go backwards really fast as we can, that Halliday says. He puts it in reverse, and then we see him kind of go underneath. I love that sequence where we're seeing all of the obstacles kind of coming up, shooting out of the code, basically, onto the streets above, and he's getting to see all that action as he's kind of driving under it. I love how visually that looks, as well as just how clever it is, because it you know, it pings through all the same kind of moments that you saw the first time we went through that race. Now you're seeing them from a different perspective. You're seeing the spikes head up out of the ground. You're seeing the T-Rex kind of lifted up in front of people. And it's just a fun kind of way of representing that challenge. Task number 2, I think, and one of the, you know, big standout sequences for a lot of people seeing the movie is, of course, the Shining sequence, where you have the Overlook Hotel meticulously recreated and kind of playing off of so much iconic imagery from that film, so much so that even though I've never seen The Shining, I was there with them for every moment of it. And it also is a great kind of comedic tour de force for H in there, where he's reacting like you might react if you've never seen this movie before, you don't know what you're getting into. You know, he goes after the little girls, and then he gets completely blown away by the blood, and then he goes into room 427 where the woman is naked, and he comes out, he's like, oh, okay, so we're doing this. Okay. And then before seeing her kind of, you know, turn into the old kind of knife-wielding version of herself. So I loved everything about that sequence. It was wonderfully done. The third sequence, they definitely, like, this is where we kind of get more real world action going, where well, I guess we've met them in the real world. The team has started meeting up. Sam and Samantha and Wade have met up prior to the second challenge. I've not read the book, as I said in my spoiler-free review, but as I understand it from hearing other reviews about it, they don't end up meeting until the end of the book. So I appreciate that they start meeting up here, and that the high five is together as a team for the third act, because it gives you more stakes. It gives you, you know, more connection to the characters. The characters are connected to themselves instead of to the avatars. One of the things I talked about when I first saw the movie was that I, as somebody who in the Kind of Funny community has like made a ton of friends online first, and then started meeting those friends at events, and to the point where friends are coming out here to Phoenix to visit with me. I've gone and performed the wedding ceremony for friends that I met online through this community. The fact that you see the high five meet in the world and come together like it hit me harder than I think it probably hits a lot of other people. Again, that's one of the, the weak points of the film, is that it's pretty convenient that these people all were in the Columbus area instead of scattered around the globe. But, I give it a pass, because it's fun. It's expediency for the sake of getting everybody together so that you have kind of levity between the characters and emotional moments between the characters, and them all working together in the world to trust each other, towards the common goal. I appreciated that. You have kind of in the third act, you have kind of what's going on in the Oasis versus what's going on at IOI. I appreciate kind of the tension that's juxtaposed there, but again, also with the humor, the big epic battle. There's a ton of fun to be had there in a lot of the little references and stuff. The Daito coming in as the Gundam is a great like visual moment. You have Mechagodzilla is a great kind of foil for the team, as well as H kind of embodying her Iron Giant thing that she'd been building so she was building it as a commission. Basically, just says, well, everything's going to hell, so I'm going to just go ahead and take it for myself. Fine, whatever. But you also have in that Samantha has been captured, and so as Artemis, she's basically working from the inside to kind of pull everything apart. There are also little moments in here that I love too, like how the guy who gets told to play Adventure on the Atari for the third challenge gets so excited and so into it, and he's into it way more than anybody should be. Playing an Atari 2600, because he's like moving like this kind of stuff, and really you're just moving the joystick with your thumb or whatever, but he's like really into it and focused and like dead set on beating that game, even though beating that game of course isn't the optical or the optimal approach to it. But yeah, I love the action to kind of that epic battle and all the little moments that you get. It's got the great gag and great use of the one F word that you get in a PG-13 movie, where Chucky gets thrown onto a guy and we just kind of cut to him in the real world saying, "It's fucking Chucky," before Chucky goes off and like kills a handful of other people. Lots of great little Easter eggs and stuff. Seeing it a few times as I have now, like there are just so many shots in there where it's like, if you I look forward to people freeze framing this when the movie's out on Blu-ray and stuff, and really doing comprehensive, okay, here's everything in this one shot. One that I caught this last time around is like when you're in H's workshop, he's got a smorgasbord of little Easter eggs in there, but one of them that I caught was he's got a stack of magazines, and on top of that stack is the very first issue of Nintendo Power, which is basically like a claymation Luigi from Super Mario Brothers 2, I believe, that they were kind of promoting on that. And so it's like it's an iconic kind of Nintendo Power image that you see it like very small, even on a big screen. It's like tiny, but it's noticeable that that's what the design is that they're pulling from. So I love the attention to detail on stuff like that, and the love and care that was given into moments like that are things that I really appreciate. Like seeing it again, time and time again. Yeah, there are glaring issues in the film. I think it does take some narrative shortcuts, and I think some of the characters kind of are more tropey than character. But there are just moments in there where I'm like, yes, this is a great, fun action movie that has heart behind it. It has like a love and a reverence for a lot of the stuff that it's referencing and pulling together. It's it's obviously a very Charlie and the Chocolate Factory type of story, where this guy is basically going through the Oasis challenge to win everything, and then even when he wins the final challenge, he gets to go to the Easter egg, the golden kind of palace, and recognizes in the same way that Willy Wonka challenges Charlie with like the contract, or the everlasting gobstopper kind of thing. He has that same kind of last like final test that you don't really know is a test, but it's the you chose wisely moment from Last Crusade. Is it Last Crusade? Yeah, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It's that kind of like realizing that you need a pauper's cup, basically, or Carpenter's cup. That's what we get to see Parzival kind of do. And then we get that nice little touching moment with Halliday kind of realizing that, like, reality is real, and you know, he's got the line about it's the only place where you can get a decent meal and that kind of stuff. And just, like, we get to see so much of that character, and Parzival or Wade kind of recognizing, seeing himself in Halliday, but then also seeing, like, Halliday's pain and realizing that he doesn't want to follow that path. One last thing I want to touch on because I think I've kind of covered the story and everything, the plot and all that. I loved the music in this. It's Alan Silvestri, who I love. Back to the Future is one of my favorite movies of all time, and he's here to do this. And not only do you have, like, lovely little homage to Back to the Future with the Zemeckis cube moment and like the music cues and stings from Back to the Future, but just so many other moments in there feel like they are, like, they could have been in Back to the Future. It's that same kind of whimsy and like charm that Back to the Future's soundtrack and score has. Especially watching it, like, again a third time, I just kind of hearkened in on a lot of the music and the action and stuff that's going on, and just, it was fun. It's a fun movie. I really enjoyed it. I loved kind of how they played with the mix of pop culture, like movies and stuff that speak to today's age, as well as to kind of the age of the 80s that Halliday basically grew up in, and what has infused his game into doing all this. And there are just a lot of little small detail things. I love one of those little small moments I love is in the final battle, when we kind of see, we're cutting between what's going on in the Oasis and the characters playing those avatars out in the real world. We cut from like little 10-year-old kids like fighting in the street, doing ninja moves, and then we cut to seeing that they are the Ninja Turtles in the game. That's who they've chosen to be as their avatars. Then we cut to, like, a bunch of teenagers running up the street with guns, and we cut back and they are basically the Spartans from Halo and stuff like that. And it's definitely shorthand, because those are kinds of the age groups that would be playing as those characters today, as opposed to, realistically, if we're talking in 2045, it'd be 40-year-olds playing as the Ninja Turtles from their youth, and 50-year-olds playing as Halo and Spartans from their youth and stuff like that. But still, it's like that's super nitpicky. But the attention to detail to recognize that, oh, these kids might be playing as the Ninja Turtles, and teenagers might be doing the first-person shootery kind of thing. I really appreciated that element of the gaming kind of culture brought into it. Again, there's, like, some cringeworthy stuff in terms of, like, a fanboy can see a hater or whatever like that. That's a terrible line. And he refers to, like, his aunt as his mother's sister for some reason instead of as his aunt. And then IROC also has, like, that's a total camper move. And it's like, blowing up everybody isn't a camper move. It's a griefer move would be, I think, the more appropriate terminology from my limited competitive multiplayer. But it's not camping. He's not camping out doing that. He's just being a dick and killing everybody. But anyway, so those are my thoughts on Ready Player One. Spoiler filled, kind of talking about everything encompassing the movie. I really enjoyed it. I think that, yeah, it has some issues and it has some flaws, but, like, they're pretty small in comparison to the joy and fun that I've had watching that movie all 3 times that I've done it. And again, I look forward to kind of going over a lot of those scenes with, like, a fine-tooth comb and saying, I'm definitely not going to get a lot of these references, but the ones I do get, I take great joy in seeing, the ship from the Firefly ship coming in and stuff like that. Seeing an X-wing in line to get into the discombobulated globe. No, it's not. Whatever the globe is, the nightclub. There's like an X-wing, and I want to like freeze frame on that and see what other ships are there waiting to get into that kind of stuff. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Ready Player One. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. And until next time, from here at the Trove, treasure your friends.